How did my wedding turn into a public test of loyalty in front of 500 people? Why did my own fiancée laugh while her parents pushed my dad out like he did not matter? How did one quiet sentence from my dad change what everyone thought they knew about me? My name is Sam Carter. I am 34. I work in logistics. My job is simple in one way and hard in another. You watch people. You learn who stays calm when things go wrong. You learn who makes noise and who does real work. I always thought that skill would help me in my private life too. When I met Lena, she liked that I was steady. She said I made her feel safe. She told me I did not need to show off. She said her life was full of loud people, and she wanted someone who did not fight for attention. At first, I believed her. We lived in my apartment for most of our time together. It was not fancy, it was clean, it was quiet. I made breakfast most days, I paid the bills on time, I kept lists on the fridge. Lena teased me about the lists, but she also used them. A few months after we got engaged, the tone changed. It did not change all at once. It changed like weather. One day you notice the air is colder, but you cannot say when it started. It began with small corrections. Lena would fix my words in front of other people. If I said the venue looked nice, she would say it was not just nice, it was the right level. If I said my dad wanted to come early and help, she would smile and say he did not need to do that. She would add that there were people for that. People for that. Like my dad was not a person too. The wedding plan had momentum. Lena's mother, Claudia, held it like a steering wheel. Claudia was the kind of woman who smiled while she tested you. She could say something sharp, then laugh as if it was light. The first time Claudia came to my apartment after the engagement, she looked around like she was reviewing a room for rent. She ran her fingers along the kitchen counter. She nodded at the couch, but not in a warm way. Then she asked what I paid for the place, and how long I planned to stay here. I told her it was temporary, because Lena and I were planning something together. Claudia replied that planning was good, but real stability showed in the address. She said Lena needed to feel proud when she gave people directions. I did not argue. I told her I understood. My dad, Graham, did not fit into Claudia's world. My dad is quiet. He wears plain jackets. He does not chase trends. He does not raise his voice to win a room. When I was a kid, I used to wish he would speak more in public. I did not want him to change. I just wanted people to see him. He raised me alone most of my life. He did not talk much about hardship. He simply did what was needed. He packed my lunch. He picked me up when my bike broke. He stood in the rain at school events even when no one else cared. That is the kind of father he is. Not loud, not showy, real. Lena met him many times. She was polite. She even hugged him at holidays. But once her family started orbiting our wedding, she began to treat him like a detail that could be moved. One evening, I came home and found Lena on the couch with her laptop open. She had a folder of wedding files. She looked up and said her mother had sent new ideas. I asked what kind of ideas. Lena said Claudia wanted to shift the budget. She said we needed more flowers, better lighting, and a larger photo team. Lena said Claudia knew the best vendors. I asked what that meant for the rest of the budget. Lena told me we could cut some small things. Then she mentioned my dad's seat at the front table. She said it might be too much pressure for him to be that visible. I asked why it would be pressure. Lena said her parents had a certain look in mind. She said it was not personal. She said it was just how events worked in her family. I stood there with my keys in my hand. I remember thinking that my dad was not being treated like family. He was being treated like a prop that did not match the scene. I asked Lena if she had told Claudia that my dad mattered to me. Lena sighed and said I was making her carry too much. She said the wedding was stressful. She said I should not add conflict when we were so close to the date. That word conflict became a tool. Every time I asked for basic respect, it was called conflict. The week after that, Claudia invited us to a gathering at a country club. It was framed as a small social meeting. She said it would help us connect with the right circle before the wedding. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I did not want to go. I could feel it. I told Lena I preferred a quiet dinner at home. Lena told me it mattered. She said her parents were putting effort in, and I should show effort too. She said I should bring my dad because it would be nice for him to see something new. The way she said it made my stomach tighten. It sounded like my dad was an item on a list again, but I called him anyway. I asked if he wanted to come. I told him it would be a casual event. My dad said he would come. He said he had a jacket that would work. He did not ask if it was fancy. He did not ask who would be there. He asked what time we should arrive. That is my dad. He shows up. On the day of the event, Lena stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. She adjusted her hair. She changed earrings twice. She asked me if my shirt looked good, but her eyes were not on me. They were on the image in the mirror, like she was checking a product label. When my dad arrived at my apartment, he brought a small box of pastries from a local bakery. He said it would be nice to bring something. He held it carefully, like it mattered. Lena smiled and said that was sweet. Then she took the box and put it in a tote bag, like she did not want it seen too soon. We drove to the club. The parking area was lined with cars that looked like they had never seen a scratch. Lena guided me to a spot and told me not to park too close to anyone. My dad sat in the back seat. He looked out the window. He did not comment. He did not act impressed. He simply observed. At the entrance, a staff member greeted Claudia and Peter, Lena's father, by name. Claudia introduced Lena, then introduced me, then paused before she introduced my dad. She did not say he was my father. She said he was Graham, like he was a neighbor who tagged along. I watched my dad's face. He did not react. He nodded politely. He extended his hand. He did not demand a title. Inside, the sound level was controlled. People laughed, but it felt planned. Music was soft. Every table had a perfect arrangement of flowers. I saw men and women in expensive clothes, holding glasses, talking in tight groups. Claudia moved like she owned the space. She took Lena's arm. She guided her from group to group. She introduced her to people with smooth sentences about family and future and big plans. When Claudia introduced me, she spoke about my work like it was a starter job. She did not say my role. She did not say what I managed. She said I was steady. She said Lena would be well taken care of. When she introduced my dad, she kept it short again. She said he had a quiet life. Then she turned away quickly, like she did not want questions. I tried to stay calm. I tried to focus on the purpose of the evening. I told myself it was just one event. I told myself I could handle discomfort for Lena's sake. Then Cole arrived. Cole is Lena's brother. He is younger than us. He has a way of filling space. His voice rises before he enters a room, like a warning. Cole greeted Lena loudly. He greeted Claudia and Peter with big gestures. Then he looked at me and smiled in a way that did not reach his eyes. He looked at my dad's jacket. He looked at my dad's shoes. He looked at the small box of pastries in Lena's tote bag, which was now sitting near a chair. Cole made a comment about how the club had standards. He said it was good that most people knew how to dress for the setting. He did not say my dad's name, but he looked at him when he spoke. A few people nearby smiled. One man gave a small laugh, like he was supporting a joke that was not brave enough to be direct. My dad kept his posture. He did not shrink. He did not flare up. He simply held his hands together and looked at Cole with calm eyes. I felt heat behind my ribs. I wanted to say something sharp, but I did not. I looked at Lena. Lena laughed. It was not a big laugh. It was a small one, like a reflex. But it was enough. It told me she wanted to be on the safe side of the room. It told me she was choosing comfort over loyalty. I leaned toward Lena and asked if she was okay with that. Lena told me not to make it a big thing. She said Cole was just being Cole. She said I needed to relax. She said my dad probably did not even notice. I looked at my dad again. He noticed. He noticed everything. He just did not perform his pain. Claudia stepped in at that moment. She placed herself between my dad and the group like she was managing the frame of a picture. She guided my dad toward a smaller table near the side. She said it would be quieter there. My dad nodded and went. He carried his calm with him like a coat. I stayed with Lena for a while. I tried to talk to people. I answered questions about the wedding. I nodded and smiled. I listened to men talk about investments and deals, using words like they were passwords. I listened to women talk about trips and schools and proper circles. All the while, I watched my dad from across the patio. He sat alone for a stretch. Then a staff member came by and asked if he needed anything. My dad thanked him and declined. My dad opened his phone and looked at something. He put it away. He folded his hands again. At some point, Peter walked over to my dad. He spoke to him briefly. Peter's face was polite, but his body language was closed. My dad listened. He nodded once. Peter walked away. When it was time to leave, Lena acted like the event went well. She told Claudia it was lovely. She told Cole he was funny. She hugged people. She smiled for photos. On the drive home, Lena talked about how her parents seemed happy. She said it was good progress. She said I should be proud. I did not answer right away. My dad sat in the back again. The city lights moved across his face in soft stripes. He did not complain. He did not ask why it happened. He did not ask me to fight. When we reached my apartment, Lena went inside first. She said she needed to check something on her phone. She did not wait for my dad. I helped my dad out of the car. He moved slowly, like his body was tired in a way I had not seen before. He looked at me and said it was fine. He said I should not worry, but his hands were not steady when he adjusted his jacket. I told him I was sorry. My dad nodded. He said he understood that people cared too much about appearances. He said it did not change who he was. He said I was the only thing that mattered to him in that room. I stood in the hallway of my apartment building and watched him walk to his car. He kept his shoulders level. He did not look back. When I went inside, Lena was on the couch, typing quickly. Her face was bright from the phone screen. She did not look up at first. Then my phone buzzed. A new group chat had been created. The title was about final wedding coordination. I could see names filling the list. Claudia, Peter, Cole, Lena, Mina the planner, a few other relatives. I scrolled once. My dad's name was not there. After that night, I started to see a pattern that I had been trying to ignore. In the beginning, Lena and I felt simple. We met through a friend's birthday dinner. She spoke fast and smiled a lot. I spoke less. She said she liked that I listened. On our second date, she told me she was tired of people who competed for attention. She said calm was rare. She said calm felt safe. I built my life around calm. I grew up with one parent in the home most days. My dad worked long hours, but he was present in the ways that mattered. He showed up. He did not miss school meetings. He did not make promises he could not keep. He taught me that respect is quiet. You do not demand it. You earn it. So when Lena's family started to test me, I did not respond with heat. I responded with patience. I believed patience would win. At first, the Whitmores seemed welcoming. Claudia hosted a dinner early on, before any wedding talk. She asked me about my job and nodded like she approved. Peter asked about my goals and talked about the importance of planning. Cole made jokes and tried to lead the room. I did not love it, but I thought it was normal family noise. Then Lena and I moved from dating into serious planning. That is when the evaluation began. It showed up in tiny moments. Claudia would ask what kind of ring I could afford, not what kind of ring Lena liked. Peter would ask what my credit looked like, as if we were negotiating a contract. Cole would bring up the idea of being a real provider, like it was a sport. Lena would hear these things and then repeat them later in softer words, like she was translating them into something I could accept. I remember one day in a downtown coffee shop. Lena asked me to meet her there during my lunch break. She was already seated when I arrived, laptop open, phone beside it. She had an energy that felt like a meeting. She told me her parents wanted to help with the wedding. She said help meant direction. She said her family had a standard and it would be better if we followed it. She talked about how weddings were not only personal, she said they were also social. I asked what that meant for us. She said it meant we should not be stubborn about small things. She said it meant we should not fight her parents on details. She said it meant we should let Claudia manage the guest list and the vendors because Claudia had experience. I asked about my dad. Lena said my dad was kind, but he did not know how these events worked. She said he might feel out of place in front of so many people. She said we should protect him from discomfort. It sounded caring on the surface. But I knew my dad. He could stand in any room. He had done it his whole life. He just did not perform in it. I told Lena I would think about it. She looked relieved, like my agreement mattered more than my feeling. That coffee shop conversation repeated itself in different shapes. The message was always the same. If I pushed back, I was making things hard. If I stayed quiet, I was being mature. Around that time, I started taking on more hours at work. Not because I wanted to escape, but because wedding costs were rising fast. Every time I thought we had a solid budget, Claudia would suggest another upgrade. Better lighting, more flowers, a different band, a bigger bar package. I would say we should stay within our plan. Lena would say her parents had connections and it was worth it. Then Claudia would call and explain that certain things were required for a proper event. She would speak like she was doing me a favor by educating me. I began to feel like I was not a future husband, I was a project. The disrespect toward my dad grew in the same slow way. At first, Claudia would simply forget to include him in planning messages. She would say it was an accident, then it became normal. There would be family updates, and my dad would hear about them through me later, as if he was outside the circle. There was one dinner at the Whitmore house that stays in my mind. It was a long table, perfect plates, matching glasses. Claudia had placed small name cards at each seat. It looked like a formal event, even though it was just family. My seat card was near the end of the table, beside Cole. Lena's seat was closer to her parents. Claudia's explanation was that it made sense for family conversations. My dad's seat card was not at the table. Claudia said she thought it might be better if my dad sat on the side couch area, because it was quieter and he could relax. She said he could still be part of things. She said it was just a comfort choice. My dad did not argue. He sat where Claudia pointed. He thanked her for the meal. He smiled politely. He did not act wounded. But I saw the structure. My dad was being placed outside the frame. It was not about comfort. It was about rank. Peter joined in without making it obvious. He would speak to me about responsibility, but his eyes would slide toward Lena as if he was checking her reaction. He spoke about finances and family legacy and what a husband should provide. He asked if I had spoken to an advisor yet. He suggested that couples in their circle usually had someone review their plan. When I said I could handle my finances, Peter smiled and said he admired confidence. Then he added that confidence without guidance could be risky. Cole was the loudest about it, but he was not the leader. He was the performer. His jokes were aimed at me, but really they were aimed at the room. He wanted laughter. He wanted approval. He wanted to show his parents that he could guard the family image. One time, Cole brought up the idea of a wedding speech. He said the speech should honor the man who would lead the family. He looked at me like he was measuring how I would respond. He asked whether I could speak well in front of important guests. I told him I could. He grinned and said he hoped I would not make it boring. Lena laughed. Not a big laugh. A small one, a safe one. The part that hurt was not Cole's behavior. It was Lena's choice to go along with it. Lena did not need to defend me with a dramatic moment. She could have simply not joined in, but she did, again and again. Like she was showing her family she understood the rules. I started thinking about what I had already given up. Before Lena, I had a routine that protected my peace. I worked, trained lightly, cooked, slept. I spent weekends with my dad. We would repair small things around his place. We would watch sports quietly. We would talk about practical life stuff, not deep speeches, just real talk. After Lena, weekends filled with social events. Dinners with her parents, brunches with her friends, planning appointments. She said it was part of building a future. I did it because I loved her. I wanted to build with her. I wanted her to feel supported, but support started to look like surrender. There was a wedding boutique appointment that showed it clearly. Lena was trying on outfits. Claudia was seated with a tablet, taking notes. Mina, the planner, was there too. A staff member brought options and tried to keep the mood light. Claudia did not just comment on the outfits. She commented on the whole picture. She asked about the venue lighting, the camera angles, the seating layout. She talked about the wedding like it was a brand launch. At one point, Claudia looked at me and asked what my dad planned to wear. I told her he had a suit and it looked fine. Claudia said fine was not the goal. Claudia said the guests would notice details. Claudia said photos last forever. She suggested we should pick something for my dad that looked more appropriate. I asked what was wrong with his suit. Claudia said nothing was wrong, but it did not match. She said it would be better if he blended in. That word hit me, blend in. My dad had spent his whole life being steady and present. Now he was being told to blend in so he would not disturb the look. On the drive home, I told Lena that it bothered me. Lena said her mother was only trying to help. She said I was being sensitive. She said my dad would not care. I told her I did care. Lena said I was making her feel like she had to choose between me and her family. She said that was unfair. She said she needed peace. I remember gripping the steering wheel and focusing on the road. I did not want to argue in the car. I did not want to raise my voice. I did not want to become someone I did not recognize, so I swallowed it. Again. But the group chat exclusion kept replaying in my mind. It was not just a technical oversight. It was a message. They did not want my dad involved. They wanted control over the story of the wedding, and my dad did not fit the story they were selling. A few days later, we had another dinner at the Whitmore house. This time, Peter talked about the guest list. He said a wedding was a statement. He said the wrong guests could weaken the statement. He said it was important to invite people who could support the couple's future. I asked what he meant by support. Peter said connections, opportunities, mentorship. He said those things mattered more than sentimental invites. Then he looked at Lena and said he was glad she understood the importance of choosing the right people. Lena nodded. I realized, in that moment, that they were not only talking about guests. They were talking about me and my dad, too. We were being weighed against their image of value. Later that night, when Lena and I were alone, I tried one more time to set a boundary. I told her I would not accept my dad being treated like an extra. Lena listened, then told me her parents were under pressure, too. She said they had their own expectations. She said she did not want to start a fight before the wedding. She said it was too late to change the way things were done. I asked her if she believed my dad deserved respect. Lena said, of course. Then she added that respect could be shown quietly without making scenes. I understood what she meant. She meant we should keep my dad out of sight and call it peace. At the end of that week, Peter called Lena while I was in the room. Lena put the call on speaker for a moment, then took it off quickly. I only caught fragments, but I heard enough to understand the tone. Peter was not asking, he was informing. After the call, Lena told me her father wanted to meet for a private talk. She said it was about final expectations. I asked what expectations. Lena said it was about what kind of husband I would be and what kind of life she would have. She said her father needed reassurance. She said he needed to know Lena would not struggle. I told her I had always provided stability. Lena said stability was not the same as status. That was the clearest sentence I had heard in months. It was also the one that showed me where I stood. The private talk with Peter happened on a Tuesday evening, 2 weeks after the country club event. He asked Lena to bring me to his office after business hours. He framed it like a supportive conversation. Lena repeated his words on the drive over, saying he only wanted to make sure we were prepared. I did not like the idea, but I went. I was still trying to prove I could fit. I was still trying to believe that if I stayed calm long enough, the tension would fade. Peter's office was on a higher floor downtown. The lobby smelled like polished stone and expensive cleaner. A guard greeted Peter by name. Lena stood straighter the moment we walked in, like the building itself asked her to. Peter offered us water. He sat behind a desk that was too wide for one person. He did not waste time with small talk. He told me that marriage was not only love, he told me it was also risk management. He said his family had worked hard to build a certain life, and he would not let it be damaged by weak planning. He spoke in a calm voice, but every sentence felt like a test. He asked how I planned to handle housing. He asked what my long-term income looked like. He asked what I would do if my job changed. He asked if I had savings outside of retirement accounts. He asked about my father, too. He asked whether my father expected support from me later. I said my father never asked for anything. I said my father worked his whole life and lived simply. I said he was proud and independent. Peter nodded like he was listening, but his eyes stayed flat. He said independence was good, but dependence often arrived quietly. He said he had seen families pulled down by hidden burdens. He said he did not want that for Lena. When he used the word burden, I felt my jaw tighten. I kept my face neutral. I told him I understood he wanted to protect his daughter. Peter then looked at Lena and asked if she felt safe with my plan. Lena hesitated, then said she felt safe, but she wanted more certainty. She said she did not want to worry about money after the wedding. She said she wanted a life that matched what she grew up with. I looked at her. The words were smooth, but I could hear Claudia's voice inside them. Peter said certainty came from structure. He said his family used agreements. He called them normal. He said they reduced conflict later. He said it was the responsible path. I asked what he meant by agreements. Peter said we would talk about that soon. He said it would be handled properly through professionals. He said it would not be personal. That was the moment I realized something important. They did not see me as a partner entering their family. They saw me as a risk that needed controls. We left the office with Lena quiet beside me. In the elevator, she avoided my eyes. When we got to the car, she said her father was only anxious because he loved her. I asked her if she agreed with him. Lena said she did not want to argue. She said the wedding was close. She said it was not the time for pride. On the drive home, I said almost nothing. I could feel the line moving inside me, the one I had been stepping back from for months. I had been trying to keep peace, but peace had turned into permission. 2 days later, we had another wedding appointment at a boutique. Lena wanted to check final fittings. Claudia came with her. Cole showed up halfway through, like it was his job to supervise the mood. The boutique was bright and white with mirrors everywhere. Staff spoke softly and smiled as if they were trained to never show stress. I sat on a couch near the wall, watching Lena step in and out of a fitting room. Claudia spoke in short commands, then turned those commands into compliments. She told Lena she looked perfect. She told her the photos would be timeless. She told her she deserved a husband who could match her. Then Claudia turned toward me and asked if my father had confirmed his outfit. I said yes. Claudia asked if he planned to wear his usual suit. I said he planned to wear a clean, well-fitted suit. Claudia smiled and said that was good, but the front row would be full of people who knew quality. She said she would not want anyone to misunderstand the family situation. Cole laughed and said people notice everything at big weddings. I kept my voice even. I asked what misunderstanding she meant. Claudia said she did not want anyone assuming my father was a service worker or a distant guest. She said it would be better to coordinate the look, so everything appeared intentional. She said it as if it was practical. But it was not about coordination. It was about embarrassment. I looked at Lena, waiting for her to speak. Lena was watching herself in the mirror. Her face stayed relaxed. She did not correct her mother. She did not pause the conversation. She only said it might be easier if Claudia helped pick something. In that moment, Lena sounded like she had already accepted that my father needed to be managed. After the appointment, we walked to the parking lot. Claudia and Cole went ahead. Lena followed them, carrying garment bags and smiling. I stayed behind for a moment, letting the air cool my face. Mina, the planner, caught up to me near the door. She spoke quietly. She told me Claudia had been changing details without telling me. She said it was normal for families to have strong opinions, but this felt like more than opinions. She said she was not sure how to handle it without my approval. I asked what details. Mina said seating, timing, and the way family roles were described in the program. She said she had been asked to keep certain things clean. I asked what clean meant. Mina did not answer directly. She only said that if I wanted changes, I should ask soon, because final approvals were coming. I thanked her and walked out. Lena was already in the car. She looked at her phone while Claudia talked to her through the open window. Cole stood nearby, smirking like he knew he had a place in the story. That evening, I drove alone to my father's workshop. I did not tell Lena. I told her I had to stop by work. My father's workshop was behind his small house. It smelled like wood and oil. Tools were hung neatly. Everything had a place. My father stood at a bench, working with slow focus. He looked up and asked if I wanted tea. I said yes. We sat on 2 simple chairs. I watched him pour tea into worn mugs. He did not ask about the wedding right away. He waited, as he always did. Finally, I told him that Lena's family was making things hard. I did not exaggerate, I did not perform anger. I just described what happened, piece by piece. My father listened without interruption. When I finished, he nodded once and said he was sorry I was dealing with it. He said it was not my job to earn basic respect. He said love should not require you to shrink. I felt a pressure behind my eyes, but I kept my face steady. I asked him if he felt hurt. My father paused before answering. He said it was not pleasant, but he had seen worse behavior from people who feared what they could not control. He said some families worshipped appearance because it was the only thing they could measure. Then he stood and walked to a cabinet near the wall. He did not open it. He only checked that it was locked. It was a small motion, but it caught my attention. I asked him what was in there. He smiled faintly and said it was old work and old memories. He told me not to worry about it. I noticed a folder on a shelf nearby with labels written in tidy handwriting. I could not read all of them from where I sat, but I saw dates, I saw names. I saw a level of organization that did not match the simple image Claudia had decided for him. On his desk, near a small lamp, I saw a plain USB drive. It had a small label, just one word. Whitmore. My throat tightened. I did not pick it up. I did not ask about it directly. I only stared for a moment longer than normal. My father noticed my eyes. He placed his hand over the USB drive gently, like he was covering it from dust. Then he told me something that changed the temperature of the room. He said I needed to decide what kind of husband I wanted to be. He did not say it harshly, he said it calmly. He said I could choose partnership, or I could choose performance. He said one of those choices would cost me my self-respect. I asked him what he thought I should do. My father said he could not make the choice for me. He said he would support me if I chose to walk away, and he would support me if I chose to stand firm and demand respectful behavior. He said the only thing he would not support was me accepting humiliation as if it was normal. When I left his workshop, my mind felt both heavy and clear. I drove home with the radio off. The city lights felt colder than usual. Lena was in the living room when I arrived. She was on a call, speaking softly, then she ended it quickly when she saw me. I asked who it was. She said her mother. I asked what they were discussing. Lena said final details. She said her mother wanted to confirm who would walk her down the aisle. She said her mother wanted it to be Peter, and that was how it should be. I reminded her that we had talked about Lena walking with both her parents and me walking with my father. I said that was a respectful balance. Lena shook her head and said her mother felt it would look strange. She said my father, walking in a key moment, could confuse guests. She said people might not understand the family structure. I stared at her. I asked what family structure she meant. Lena said her parents wanted the wedding to look united and strong. She said some people would judge us if it looked uneven. That word uneven hit me like a small blow. She was talking about my father. She was saying his presence made the picture uneven. I asked Lena calmly if she believed my father was something to hide. Lena did not answer right away. Then she said she did not want drama. She said she wanted a smooth day. She said I should not take everything personally. She said my father would be fine. I told her my father was not the issue. Lena asked what I meant. I told her the issue was that she was letting them treat him like a problem. I told her the issue was that she was laughing along when they reduced him. I told her I could not keep acting like that was normal. Lena's face tightened. She said I was making her feel trapped. She said I was putting her in the middle. She said it was unfair to push this now, so close to the wedding. I listened. I did not interrupt. Then I said something I had not allowed myself to say before. I told her that I was not trapped. I told her I loved her, but I would not trade my father's dignity for a pretty photo. Lena stared at me as if she did not recognize the version of me in that moment. I was not loud. I was not threatening. I was simply firm. That night, after Lena went to bed, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open. I scrolled through messages I had ignored for months. I saved the group chat. I saved the seating updates Mina had sent. I saved the times and dates of key conversations written in my own calm notes. I did not feel rage. I felt clarity. I created a new folder on my computer. I gave it a simple name: Wedding. The next morning, I woke up before Lena. The apartment was still dark. I made coffee and sat at the table with my laptop. I opened the folder I had created and started building it like a timeline. I did not write feelings first. I wrote dates. I wrote places. I wrote who was present and what was said. I kept it plain. I saved screenshots of the group chat title and the list of names. I saved the messages where Claudia gave instructions as if she owned the event. I saved the messages where Lena told me to stay quiet for peace. I did not do it to punish anyone. I did it because I could feel reality being shaped around me, and I wanted my own copy of the truth. When Lena woke up, she walked into the kitchen with her phone already in her hand. She kissed my cheek like nothing happened the night before. Then she asked if I had thought more about what we talked about. I told her I had. She said she wanted the day to be smooth. She said I needed to promise I would not create tension with her family. She said the wedding was not the time to fight old battles. I told her I was not looking for a fight. I told her I would not accept disrespect. I said it slowly, with the same tone I use at work when a problem needs a clear boundary. Lena stared at me and asked what I expected her to do. I told her I expected her to act like my partner. I said she did not need to confront everyone in a dramatic way. I said she only needed to stop joining in when they pushed my father aside. Lena's face tightened. She said I was making it sound like she was against me. She said she loved my father. She said she just wanted the day to look right. Look right. That phrase kept coming back. Lena left for work. I left for work too, but my head was not fully on my job. I kept thinking about Mina's warning at the boutique. If Claudia was changing details without telling me, then the wedding was already being used as a tool. It was not only about flowers and lighting, it was about power. That afternoon, I sent Mina a short message and asked if we could talk privately for 10 minutes. I did not accuse anyone. I did not write a long paragraph. I simply asked for clarity on approvals. Mina replied fast. She suggested we meet in the hotel lobby where many out-of-town guests would stay. She said it would look normal, like another planning check. 2 days later, I went there after work. The lobby had soft lights and quiet music. People rolled suitcases across polished floors. A few guests were already in town, even though the ceremony was still days away. Mina arrived with a tablet and a tired expression. She sat with me in a corner area where no one listened. She told me Claudia had been calling her daily. Claudia had asked for the final program to list Lena's parents in a special way. Claudia had asked for certain names to be left off the front page. Claudia had asked for photo timing that kept specific people out of key moments. I asked Mina if my father was one of those people. Mina did not say it sharply, but she did not deny it either. She said Claudia wanted the front row to look balanced. She said Claudia wanted the photo line to look high status. She said Claudia believed some guests could hurt that look. I asked Mina who approved these changes. Mina said Claudia spoke as if she had full authority. Mina said she had tried to include me, but Claudia often pushed decisions through quickly and said I would agree later. I felt a cold focus settle in my chest. I thanked Mina for telling me. I told her I would handle it properly. Mina hesitated, then said one more thing. She said Claudia had asked her to keep my father out of the back corridor near the venue office. She said Claudia wanted staff to guide him away if he wandered near the staging area. I asked why. Mina said Claudia did not want anything unplanned near the front. I nodded once. I kept my face calm. Then I asked Mina to forward me any new changes Claudia requested, even if Mina thought they were small. I said I needed the full picture. When I left the hotel, my phone buzzed with messages from the group chat. Claudia was discussing seating again. Cole posted a laughing reaction to something about family roles. Lena responded with a short comment that supported her mother. I did not reply. I saved everything. That weekend, I visited my father again. I did not mention the folder on my laptop. I did not mention Mina's comments. I only asked how he was doing. My father said he was fine. He asked how I was sleeping. He asked if I was eating enough. He asked if I was still running errands for everyone like I always did. I smiled a little at that. My father has a way of seeing me even when other people do not. While we talked, his phone rang. He looked at the screen and stepped outside the workshop to take the call. I could not hear the words, but I could see his posture. It was not fearful, it was precise. He listened more than he spoke. He nodded once or twice. Then he came back in and put the phone down. I asked if everything was okay. He said yes. He said some old matters were being finalized. He said it was nothing for me to carry. I wanted to push for answers. I did not. I had learned that my father shared what mattered at the right time. If he was holding something back, it was not to deceive me, it was to protect me. A few days later, I got a message from an unfamiliar number. The person introduced herself as Asha Patel. She said she was a friend of my father's and that he had mentioned I might need someone who understood procedure. She asked if I could meet for a short conversation. I stared at the message for a long time before answering. I did not know what my father had told her. I did not know what she expected, but I knew one thing. The Whitmores respected systems, they respected official steps, they respected paperwork and titles and rules. If I wanted to protect my father and myself, I needed to stop trying to win a social contest. So I replied and agreed to meet. Asha's office was not flashy. It was clean, quiet, and organized. The waiting room smelled like paper and tea. There were framed certificates on the wall, but nothing felt like it was there to impress strangers. It felt like it was there because it belonged. Asha greeted me and asked me to sit. She spoke calmly. She did not ask for drama, she asked for facts. She asked who had control over vendor agreements, who had final say on the venue, and how decisions were being communicated. I told her what I knew, in simple terms. I said Claudia was pushing changes. I said Lena was supporting her. I said my father was being moved out of key roles and treated like an issue to manage. Asha listened and nodded. She told me that many event agreements have conduct expectations and authority lines. She told me that if someone tries to use staff to target a guest, that can become a serious problem for them, not for the guest. She told me that public events have rules even when families act like they can do anything. I asked what I should do. Asha said I should keep collecting information without reacting in public. She said I should be careful with my words. She said if I needed to set boundaries, I should do it in ways that are easy to prove later. She said calm clarity is stronger than emotional speeches. I left her office feeling steadier, not because I had a plan on paper, but because I had a direction. I was no longer alone in my head. That same week, I visited the wedding venue under the excuse of checking parking and timing. I asked to speak with Owen Price, the operations manager. He met me in a small office off the main hall. He looked like someone who had seen every kind of family situation and was tired of surprises. I told Owen I wanted the day to be smooth. I asked him what the venue policy was if guests created disruption. I asked him what staff could do if someone tried to block a guest from moving freely. I asked him how authority was verified when someone gave orders. Owen answered in plain language. He said staff follow the contract and the designated contacts. He said if there is conflict, staff protect the venue and the event schedule. He said people can be asked to step back if they interfere with operations. I thanked him and told him I hoped none of it would be needed. I did not mention Claudia by name. I did not show him messages. I kept it clean. As I left the venue, I stood for a moment in the empty hall. I imagined it full of people. I imagined my father walking in, steady and quiet. I imagined Claudia trying to control the room with smiles and whispers. For the first time, I did not imagine myself begging anyone for basic respect. Back at home, Lena was in planning mode. She talked about guest arrivals and hotel blocks and final payments. She spoke like the wedding was a train that could not stop. I listened. I helped where I could. I kept my tone calm. But inside, I had shifted. When Lena went to shower, I opened my laptop again. I organized the screenshots by date. I wrote short notes beside key messages. I saved Mina's updates. I added the venue visit to my timeline. I also wrote one sentence at the top of the folder, like a reminder to myself. I wrote that I would not argue in public. I would not plead. I would not match their noise. I would handle things through the systems they respected. Then I closed the laptop and sat in the quiet for a few minutes, listening to the apartment settle around me. I did not feel rage. I felt ready. The week of the wedding felt like standing near a fast river. Everything moved. Everyone talked at once. Every small choice was treated like it could ruin everything. Lena moved through the days like she was following a script. She smiled on calls. She answered messages in seconds. She used words like schedule, vendor, and final count. When I asked how she felt, she said she was excited. But her eyes stayed on her phone. I kept doing what I always did. I stayed calm. I handled tasks. I carried boxes. I drove to pick up items. I made sure we had what we needed. But inside, I had stopped trying to earn approval. I had a different goal now. I wanted one thing. I wanted to protect my father's dignity without turning myself into a noisy man. 2 days before the rehearsal dinner, I met Asha again. Her office was quiet. She spoke in short, clear sentences. She told me to keep everything simple and clean. She told me not to argue in public. She told me to let the system speak. I asked her what I should do next. She said I should make sure key people at the venue knew who had authority for decisions and safety. She said I should keep my records organized and backed up. She said I should be ready to step away from the ceremony if I needed to. She said boundaries are real only when you are willing to act on them. I nodded. I told her I understood. She placed a thin folder on the table. I did not open it. I did not read anything in front of her. She simply asked me to sign where she pointed. She said it was for proper handling if the situation escalated. She said I might not need it, but it was better to be prepared than surprised. My hand did not shake. I signed. I did not feel proud. I felt steady. After that meeting, I went straight to the venue again. I asked Owen for 5 minutes. He looked busy, but he listened. I told him I wanted the day to run smoothly and safely. I asked him what his team needed from me if someone tried to block a guest or control staff. Owen said his team followed the contract contacts and venue policy. He said if someone gave orders without authority, staff would not act on it. He said if someone interfered with operations, staff could remove them from key areas. He said he did not care about family titles. He cared about rules and safety. I told him that was exactly what I wanted. I thanked him and left. That night at home, Lena and I ate dinner on the couch. It was quiet. She kept checking her phone. I asked her if her mother was still changing things. Lena said her mother was just trying to make the day perfect. She said I should trust her. I asked if she trusted me. Lena paused, then said she did. She said she just wanted peace. I told her I wanted peace too. I told her peace did not mean silence. I told her peace meant respect. Lena looked away and said we were too close to the wedding for heavy talks. She said we should focus on the next 2 days and get through it. I let the conversation end, not because I agreed, but because I had learned that repeating the same point would not change her. Lena had already chosen the path of least resistance. She was following her family's current. Later, when she went to sleep, I sat at the kitchen table again. I opened my laptop. I checked my folder. I checked my notes. I did not add anything new that night. I simply made sure everything was in order. Then I wrote a short message to my father. I told him the rehearsal dinner might feel tense. I told him I would stay close. I told him to arrive with me, not alone. My father replied with one simple line. He said he would be ready. The rehearsal dinner was in a ballroom at a hotel. The room was warm and bright, with round tables and flowers that looked expensive. People were dressed like it was already the wedding. There were cameras out before the first plate hit the table. When Lena and I walked in, Claudia stood near the entrance like a gate. She greeted Lena first, then kissed her cheek. She greeted Peter next. Then she turned to me. Claudia smiled and asked if I was excited. I said yes. She said she could tell I was nervous. She said it was normal for men to feel overwhelmed by big events. She said I should just follow the plan. I nodded. I told her I understood. My father arrived a few minutes later. He was wearing his suit. It was clean and fit him well. He looked calm. He carried himself like he belonged anywhere. Claudia's smile tightened for a second. Then she greeted him politely and told him where to sit. She used my father's first name again, like she could not bring herself to say his role out loud. My father thanked her and walked to the table. I looked at the seating cards. My father was not near the center. He was placed to the side near an aisle where staff moved in and out. It was not an accident. It was a choice. I felt that cold focus return. I did not react. I sat with Lena where we were assigned. I watched the room. Cole arrived late, loud and confident. He greeted everyone like he was hosting. He patted my shoulder and said I looked tense. He said I should relax because the hard part was almost done. I told him I was fine. During dinner, Claudia moved from table to table. She checked on people like a manager. She corrected small things. She adjusted napkins. She guided conversations. She made sure everyone saw her. Peter stayed seated, but he spoke in quiet, firm ways. When he addressed a group, they listened. He looked at Lena often, like he was reminding her that she was part of his house, even as she prepared to marry me. Lena laughed at the right moments. She nodded when her parents spoke. She looked beautiful and distant at the same time. She rarely looked toward my father's table. At one point, I saw Mina near the back, speaking with staff. She caught my eye for a second. Her expression was serious. She gave a small nod, like she was telling me she had not forgotten our talk. Then the speeches started. Peter spoke first. He spoke about family, tradition, and responsibility. He said Lena deserved the best. He said she had always been guided with care. He spoke about protecting the future. He did not mention me much. He mentioned the wedding like it was an event his family was giving. Claudia spoke next. She spoke about image without saying the word. She spoke about beauty, elegance, and standards. She thanked vendors. She thanked guests for traveling. She said the wedding would be remembered for years. Then Cole stood up. Cole held his glass high. He smiled wide. He spoke in a playful tone that carried across the room. He talked about Lena as if she was a prize. He talked about how her family always kept things strong. Then he shifted. He started talking about father figures. He said a real father was a man who built a life others could admire. He said a father set the bar. He said Lena had the best example right in front of her. He looked at Peter. People clapped, people nodded. I heard a few laughs, like it was a clever moment. Cole did not say my father's name. He did not need to. The silence around my father's role was the message. I turned my head and looked across the room. My father was sitting straight. He was not smiling. He was not angry either. He looked like a man watching weather move in, already knowing which way it would go. I waited for Lena to react. Lena smiled and clapped. She leaned toward her mother and said something that made Claudia grin. That was the moment I stopped hoping for a change of heart. I did not feel heat. I felt clarity. After the speeches, Claudia started planning the next day out loud. She told people where to be and when. She reminded everyone about the ceremony start time. She reminded people about pictures and how important it was to follow direction. I stood up and walked to the side of the room, near the hallway. My father noticed and followed a minute later. We stood near a quiet corner. I asked him if he was okay. My father said he was fine. He said he had expected it. He told me not to carry his feelings like a burden. I told him I was not carrying his feelings. I told him I was carrying my decision. My father looked at me for a long moment. He asked what I meant. I told him I was going to handle things the right way. I told him I would not argue in that room. I told him I would not beg for respect. I told him I would use the systems they trusted. My father nodded once. He said he understood. He said he trusted me. When we returned to the table, Lena asked where I had gone. I told her I was checking on my father. Lena's face tightened slightly. She asked if something was wrong. I told her nothing was wrong. I told her I just wanted my father to feel included. Lena said her family was not trying to exclude anyone. She said I was seeing problems where there were none. She said this was a happy week and I was making it heavy. I looked at her and kept my tone calm. I told her I was not making anything heavy. I told her I was simply paying attention. Lena did not answer. She checked her phone again. After the rehearsal dinner ended, I drove my father back to his place. The night air was cold. The roads were quiet. My father looked out the window like he was thinking. Before he got out of the car, he placed his hand on my shoulder and told me one thing. He said tomorrow would show me who Lena really was, not in private, but in front of everyone. I drove home alone after that. When I entered the apartment, Lena was already there, taking off her shoes and talking on the phone. I could hear Claudia's voice through the speaker, sharp and confident. Lena was agreeing, saying yes, saying of course, saying it would be perfect. Lena ended the call and looked at me. She asked if I was okay. I told her I was okay. I told her I was tired. Lena said we should sleep early because tomorrow would be a long day. That night, I did not sleep much. I lay on the couch with a blanket. I listened to the small sounds of the apartment. I thought about my father sitting alone at that side table. I thought about Lena clapping at Cole's speech. I also thought about how simple the next step could be if I stayed calm. In the morning, I woke up before Lena again. I showered, I dressed, I checked my phone for messages. There were more updates in the group chat. There were more small instructions. There were more reminders about where people should stand and what they should do. I did not reply. I made one last short call, then ended it quickly. I placed my phone face down on the table. When Lena walked into the kitchen, she looked at me and said I was very quiet. I told her I was focused. Lena smiled and said focus was good. She said the day would be beautiful. I looked at her and said I hoped it would be honest too. Lena's smile faded for a second. Then she turned away and started getting ready. A few hours later, I picked up my father. We drove to the venue together. The parking lot was already filling. People in formal clothes were walking toward the entrance. Staff were moving quickly with clipboards and headsets. My father stepped out of the car and adjusted his jacket. He looked calm. He looked ready. I took a slow breath and walked with him toward the doors. The week of the wedding felt like standing near a fast river. Everything moved. Everyone spoke at once. Every small choice was treated like it could ruin the whole day. Lena moved through it like she was following a script. She smiled on calls. She answered messages in seconds. She used words like schedule, vendor, and final count. When I asked how she felt, she said she was excited. But her eyes stayed on her phone. I kept doing what I always did. I stayed calm. I handled tasks. I carried boxes. I drove to pick up items. I made sure we had what we needed. But inside, I had stopped trying to earn approval. 2 days before the rehearsal dinner, I met Asha again. Her office was quiet. She spoke in short, clear sentences. She told me to keep everything simple. She told me not to argue in public. She told me to let the system speak for me. I asked what I should do next. She said I should keep my records organized and backed up. She said I should be careful with my words and careful with timing. She said boundaries only matter if you are willing to act on them. She placed a thin folder on the table. I did not open it. She pointed to a line and asked me to sign. She said it was a step for proper handling if things got worse. She said I might not need it, but it was better to be ready than surprised. My hand did not shake. I signed and left. After that, I went to the venue again. I asked Owen for a few minutes. He looked busy, but he listened. I told him I wanted the day to run smoothly and safely. I asked what his team did if someone tried to block a guest or give staff orders without authority. Owen said staff follow the contract contacts and venue policy. He said if there was conflict, staff would protect the venue and the schedule. He said he did not care about family titles. He cared about rules. I thanked him and walked out into the empty hall. I pictured it full of people. I pictured my father walking in, steady and quiet. For the first time, I did not picture myself pleading with anyone. I pictured myself acting. That night at home, Lena and I ate on the couch. She kept checking her phone. I asked if her mother was still changing things. Lena said her mother was only trying to make the day perfect. She told me to trust her. I asked if she trusted me. She paused, then said yes. She said she just wanted peace. I told her I wanted peace too. I told her peace did not mean silence. I told her peace meant respect. Lena looked away and said we were too close to the wedding for heavy talks. She said we should get through the next 2 days. Later, when she went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open. I checked my folder, I checked dates and screenshots, I made sure everything was in order, then I wrote my father a short message. I told him the rehearsal dinner might feel tense. I told him to arrive with me, not alone. He replied with one line. He said he would be ready. The rehearsal dinner was in a hotel ballroom. The room was warm and bright. People dressed like it was already the main day. Phones were out early. Staff moved fast. Claudia stood near the entrance like a gate. She greeted Lena first, kissed her cheek, and praised her. Then she greeted Peter. Then she turned to me and smiled. She asked if I was excited. I said yes. She said she could tell I was nervous. She said it was normal for men to feel overwhelmed by big events. She told me to follow the plan. I nodded. My father arrived a few minutes later. He wore his suit. It was clean and fit him well. He looked calm. He carried himself like he belonged. Claudia's smile tightened for a second, then returned. She greeted him politely and told him where to sit. She used his first name again, not his role. I checked the place cards. My father was not near the center. He was placed to the side near an aisle where staff passed. It was not a mistake. It was a choice. Cole arrived late, loud, and confident. He greeted people like he was hosting. He patted my shoulder and said I looked tense. He told me to relax because the hard part was almost done. I told him I was fine. Dinner moved forward. Claudia managed the room. She adjusted details, she guided conversations, she made sure people saw her. Peter stayed seated, but when he spoke, people listened. Lena smiled and nodded at the right moments. She rarely looked toward my father's table. Then speeches began. Peter spoke about tradition and responsibility. He spoke about protecting the future. He did not say much about me. He spoke like the wedding was an event his family was giving. Claudia spoke next. She praised the vendors and the guests. She talked about standards and beauty without using those words directly. She said the wedding would be remembered for years. Then Cole stood up. He lifted his glass and spoke in a playful tone. He talked about Lena as if she was a prize. He talked about strong families. Then he shifted into father figures. He said a real father was a man who built a life others could admire. He said Lena had the best example right in front of her. He looked at Peter. People clapped. Some laughed like it was clever. Cole did not say my father's name. He did not need to. The message was clear. I looked across the room. My father sat straight. He did not smile. He did not react in a way the room could use. He looked like a man who understood what he was seeing. I looked at Lena. She smiled and clapped. She leaned toward Claudia and said something that made Claudia grin. That was the moment the last hope fell away in me. Not with anger, with clarity. I stepped away to a quiet corner near the hallway. My father followed a minute later. I asked if he was okay. He said he was fine. He told me not to carry this for him. I told him I was not carrying his feelings. I was carrying my decision. I told him I would handle things the right way. I told him I would not argue in that room. I told him I would not beg for respect. My father nodded once and said he trusted me. When the rehearsal dinner ended, I drove him home. The roads were quiet. Before he got out of the car, he placed his hand on my shoulder and told me tomorrow would show me who Lena really was, not in private, but in front of everyone. That night, I slept on the couch. In the morning, I woke up early, showered, and dressed. The group chat kept buzzing with updates. I did not reply. A few hours later, I picked up my father. We drove to the venue together. The parking lot was filling. Guests in formal clothes walked toward the doors. Staff moved with clipboards and headsets. My father stepped out, adjusted his jacket, and waited beside me. I took a slow breath and walked with him toward the entrance.